Welcome to Hope Through the Hard, a curated coalition podcast where we talk honestly about life struggles and how to face them in healthy, hope-filled ways. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." That's the purpose of this space. Real conversations about the hard things in life and the hope that carries us through. Visit curatedcoalition.com to find our coaching services and book a free consultation.
Hi, I'm Levi. This is Ashley, and Lincoln's running production, and Lyndon's kind of hanging out and doing dog duty, I guess.
Yeah, he's babysitting Lovey.
Yes. Yes. So, kid question?
Which is actually very helpful, I think.
Oh. If you could drink one drink for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh. One drink for the rest of my life and nothing else?
Nothing else.
Okay. I don't know. I really like the Olipop cream soda right now.
The rest of your life?
I don't know. I think I might get tired of it. Yeah. But I hate to say water because that's really boring. Mm-hmm. But that's really the only other thing I drink besides coffee.
Coffee.
Which I definitely can't drink all the time for the rest of my life because then I'll be up all night.
Good for you. Coffee puts me to sleep if I drink it late at night. So,
well, it doesn't put me to sleep if I drink it late at night.
No, then you just have to stop drinking at a set time. Yeah. Coffee would be for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess.
Olipop.
I like the cream soda, the Olipop cream soda. I really do like it a lot.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we're talking about exclusion today. So maybe you have been in the same position that we've been in when you're looking at social media or you show up to church on Sunday and you realize that everyone in your friend group has attended an event,
right? And
you weren't invited.
Yeah.
For me, that feels like my stomach drops. I feel almost sick and sad. And you wonder, like, why was I not invited? So today we're kind of challenging that thought. And the idea behind today's episode is, what if those places that you aren't included, those times when you're left out, the events that you weren't invited to, are actually places that God intended for you to be protected from?
Right. And what if we reframe the way we were thinking?
Yeah.
And with that, considering exclusion isn't always rejection, but it's sometimes God's way of redirecting you and where you're at and the path you have.
Right.
And trying to shift that to something else. So taking the mind shift, changing a little bit of how we proceed and think of that.
Yeah. So Psalm 37, verses 23 and 24 say, "The steps of a man are established by the Lord when he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for the Lord upholds his hand."
Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about exclusion feels like a setback, right?
Yeah,
and we've been in a lot of different places, my jobs, especially, or some of our friend groups that we've had in the past, where things seem to be happy and then there's a shift. Things seem to be going great and then things change. And sometimes that's okay to have those shifts. I know homeschool groups sometimes feels that way. But oftentimes God's steering us away from maybe drama, temptation, misalignment of relationships, environments that would derail maybe our healing that we're trying to change and do. And people cannot hold the weight of who we are becoming because we've changed and we've grown. And so can they handle where we're at now?
Yeah, where God's leading you. And so one of the verses that I think, or passages that I think highlights that God does this, that God sometimes leaves you out of places and people,
right,
and relationships because he's doing something altogether different, is 1 Samuel chapter 16. And it's the anointing of David. Yeah. And it says, verses, I think, 6 to 13. So when they came, he looked on Eliab, and he, of course, is Samuel. Samuel is the prophet doing the anointing. So when they came, he looked on Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before him." But the Lord said to Samuel, Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature. I have rejected him, for the Lord sees not as a man sees. Man looks, page turn. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. And Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. And Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel finally said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. Then Samuel said to Jesse, are all your sons here? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, but behold, he is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and get him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him. This is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. And Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. So, I mean, this is a really clear picture of David's dad invited all of his sons, like all 7 of David's brothers, and said, these are the ones you should pick from. And God had David positioned in the field alone. And it never even occurred to his dad to invite him in. It never occurred to his dad to include him. He was intentionally excluded. And so that being said, he was the one God chose. God was doing something incredible and preparing David for something incredible, and Jesse couldn't see it.
Right. Sometimes God hides us from the position of what we're about to be in. To be able to protect us. He drew David closer. Spending a time out in the field with the sheep is getting to understand God as a shepherd. And getting to understand, hey, here's some quiet time. I'm able to sit here and just sing to God. He loved to worship, and he would sing to God and grow that relationship. But also God gave him the courage during that time, fighting animals away from the sheep and learning how to build up some courage and not fear the things of this world. And God just continued to teach him of, hey, I'm about to position you, and here's some of the key cornerstones of what we need to put into your life to make you see life for God looks like this. And then Goliath shows up. David doesn't have any fear, and he's like, what's going on? And goes out and kills Goliath. And then continues the kingdom and grows the kingdom and does all these things for God. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I think also thinking about too, the time that he's out there alone in the wilderness, like not necessarily in the wilderness, but in the hills alone with his sheep, and there's no one else out there. It's just him. The time that he was running from Saul, and he's hiding in the caves, and he was comfortable being alone in the dark, in the night, by himself. And he probably, over the course of the years as a shepherd, he probably also, took his sheep into the caves with him. So all of that was preparation. God could see in David's life further down the road than he could.
Right.
And he knew that all of that time would be well spent. There was a purpose for all of that. And so I think that, just thinking about, he was where God needed him to be, not necessarily where other people thought he should be included, but he was where God wanted him to be. And so I think it might be wise for us to consider that God takes us out of the rooms that can't hold our anointing. It's not always personal. Sometimes it's spiritual.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes we outgrow who we've chosen to be around. And many of our biggest dreams, I think, as kids, we think, I'm going to be in this position. I'm going to have this type of job.
I'm going to make this much money and drive this kind of car.
Right. Have this many kids and everything else. But I think that what's cool is that we can have those dreams, but with God, there's so much that can happen. There's no way I thought we would be in this house with all these kids and living the life of what God kind of has planned for us today. It's a whole lot better of an idea than what I used to think I would be doing.
Right. Yeah. And I think that we also, as you grow and as you change and as you are sanctified, as you become more like Jesus, and as you heal the broken parts of yourself, which is kind of the path that we've been on in the last year, is healing not just for ourselves, but healing for our whole family. You change the kind of people that you attract. And so there are friendships that both of us have had that have seen their season come and go. And maybe you've healed past the point where that person can offer reciprocity in a friendship. Maybe they're not, like, what you're offering, they're not able to meet. And maybe what they're demanding, you've healed past what that friendship can hold. So it doesn't mean that you don't value those people still, or value the time that you were friends with them, because those things helped move you along.
Right.
It just means that you've healed past what they can offer.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes God closes doors because many things could happen. I know multiple jobs that I've had, God closed the door of that. We didn't understand why I had to move or change entire careers and positions. And God was closing the door because of what other things were going to happen. Me being inside of that's not going to work.
Yep.
And I needed to close the door and get out. Or friendships have been the same way. And to survive some of the situations, God said, "No, you need to do this."
Right. And it's hard. That's sometimes really, really hard. So John 15:2 talks about that concept, I think. And if you can see the analogy, then it will help you to understand and be more okay with God leaving you out of rooms and spaces and friendships and relationships. It says, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit."
Yeah. Yeah. And pruning looks a lot like, in a tree with a branch that breaks off, or some of the bark comes off of it and it doesn't have protection, and can be kind of scary because it looks different. And we may not feel like we have God's protection in those times of shifts and changes, but God's always protecting the trees. God's always protecting the animals. God's going to protect us as well. We just might not like it because we've lost something and it's been cut off from us, and it feels like an open wound. That's where healing gets to happen, and sometimes those special places into that next season of whatever God has planned.
Yeah. And I think when we're left out of social events or friend groups or jobs or a ministry opportunity, we often feel exposed.
Yeah.
And it feels painful, and it feels like everyone can see that you aren't in the social media post, or you aren't on stage with everyone else. You can't add to the story at the dinner party, whatever that is. If we can learn to reframe that loss in our mind and see that God might be redirecting us in a different spiritual avenue, or down a different path physically, or he's replacing all of those things, and he is providing a different kind of nutrients, we might be able to see that as growth.
Yeah. So when was a time for you to kind of share you felt excluded, only to realize that later on God's providing something in protection there?
Yeah, I think mostly for me that was we were in a church that there was a group of like 4 or 5 families, and those 4 or 5 families, I felt like we were friends with them, like on some level. But when it came down to would they include us in social events, they never did.
Right.
And that stung.
Yeah.
Like that was really, like I felt insulted. I felt left out. As the years have gone by, I have seen not all, but some of those families display character traits that I'm glad that I wasn't associated with. The behavior that they had, or the actions that they pursued, the avenues of, behavior that they pursued for just out of selfish ambition and vain conceit, really. Like that's what it was. I'm glad that I wasn't part of that in that deeper, more personal friendship way. And that's not all of those families.
No.
But there were, and that has naturally kind of broken off the ones who didn't really want to be part of that kind of behavior, moved away from that group. Right. And so, but it was hard at the time. What about you?
Yeah, same situation, because we had some great friends of that. It's hard whenever you do ministry and you kind of get pushed out of it.
Yeah.
We've had that happen multiple times. And just even like one of the last times we were at a church helping and serving there, we had a life-changing situation with our family, and they basically told us, stop serving.
Yeah.
It takes some time to reflect on you. Okay. Some of the best ways for time to reflect is serving.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're told to take a seat and step back. And it's like, ouch, that kind of hurts. But God had plans, and that was one of the ways of moving us forward into the next realm of what we were trying to do.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to remember, is that if you are in ministry and there are people walking through life-changing situations and it looks hard, if their position looks hard to you and you feel like they would benefit from a break, mentor them through that.
Right.
That would be the difference there. Mentor them through that, walk alongside them, offer to meet the needs that might be coming up for them instead of excluding them.
Yeah.
And of course, yes, that all happened, I think, for a reason, for God's purpose. But, but I think that would have felt less harsh. Right. So,
but that's God kind of pruning some different things off of us and saying, hey, I need you to serve in a different way, and you're not going to listen. So I'm just going to cut it off.
Yeah. Which he definitely did.
He did.
Yeah.
And multiple things in our lives where God's kind of said, I'm going to push you, and it's going to feel uncomfortable. But also go back to David, all the things he did probably wasn't just comfortable, of killing Goliath and running from Saul and knowing.
And being a very young kid, staying out at night in the hills alone where there are wild animals and, it being his job alone to protect the flock. Like there's big stuff to learn. So I think the thing to remember is that God also probably really doesn't want you to stay where you're not celebrated.
Correct.
You are his child, and he is so proud of you, and he loves you so much, and he's going to close doors on rooms where he knows and he's hearing conversations that you're not privy to. So when people are sitting in places and they're talking about you, and he sees the hearts and the attitudes and the mind behind the behavior, and it's not good for you.
Right.
It's going to hurt when he closes the door, but he is going to close the door for you. So,
and the door's going to close, and it's going to look different in every situation too. I've had situations in my life where a new staff person comes on and I'm not a fit. Understood that, knew, okay, it's time for us to leave, which hurt because then that closed a lot of friendships, closed a lot of other doors. Because especially if you're in ministry, you move and live in different places, you don't see everybody. Another time of just closing a door is somebody moved into the company and basically came and got my job, and God closed that door. What I think is so cool is how God protected us through all that too.
yeah.
Every time he's blessed us, every time he's got us through that, but also he's protected us from what season was coming in every single one of those situations.
Right.
That we didn't know.
Yeah. The church that you're referring to, they faced a really hard season of change.
Oh, yeah.
With a lot of, almost like a divide, almost like a really nasty church split that we didn't have to be part of.
Right.
And we were able to be here and, and not have to deal with the fallout that happened from that. And then with your job, there's just been so many little protections along the way where he's provided and he's given you different opportunities, different assignments from him, things that you thought you would never be able to do.
Right.
He's equipping you now to do.
And healing. I think that's the key part of all of it, is that we've gotten to separate from each of those situations and heal in the new place that we're at. Because God's kind of said, hey, we're going to take you out of this, put you over here. You can heal up. And because I've got some new plans for you.
Another assignment. Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah. And I think it's good to remember that happened to Jesus too.
Right.
Jesus went back to Nazareth. He went back to his hometown to preach and to teach and to heal. And they said, hey, no thanks. We know who you are. You're just that carpenter's kid.
Right.
We watched you grow up. There's really nothing special about you. So like, we don't want your miracles. Right. Well, his miracles didn't stop.
Right.
He didn't stop having an anointing as the Son of God just because the people in Nazareth didn't want him.
Right.
He went on and he continued to do miracles. Well, all the other places, his power didn't diminish. His assignment didn't diminish. The environment of Nazareth just wasn't it for him.
Right.
That's okay. Yeah. So God moved him on.
Yeah. And God's going to kind of exclude us in some situations and make us feel probably excluded, but there's a purpose of that. He is going to put us in situations for us to be honored and not just tolerated. So you're into these positions to be honored as you're worshiping and serving God. And Matthew 10:14 says, and if anyone will not receive you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet when you leave that house or town. So at some point in time, we've been in these conversations, situations, churches. It's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to dust my feet off as I walk out of your house. And this friendship's done for now.
Yeah.
It may be for a season, or it may just be way different and you're not having a buddy-buddy situation. It's just hey, it's time for me to move on. There's a new season. I have other relationships to pour into, and God's going to put us into relationships where we're honored and not just put up with and tolerated.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that, at no point does the biblical record say Jesus left Nazareth and talked bad about them or hated them or despised them. He just moved on.
Right.
And that can happen. Like all of these places that we're talking about where we've been left out or excluded or pushed out even, there might have been hurt feelings for a while, but like you said, the healing happens.
Right.
And so it doesn't have to be an opportunity for bitterness to take root. It can just be an opportunity for you to move on and pour into other people, like you said. Yeah, being left out creates a space for you to be lifted up. And I think that's true. It's sometimes hard to feel, but it is true because God removes you before he reveals you. And so losing a friend group often creates a space for another different connection that's healthier. I know when we moved to Savannah, leaving Jefferson City, leaving my community at Lighthouse, the wonderful ladies that I taught with, who, Adeline was part of the school, and I could take the boys with me and everyone, just oohed and awed over them. And the older girls would fight over who got to babysit them while, where they got to hang out. Right. And it was just the best community. And I knew when we moved, that would hurt, that would sting to not have that kind of place for our family. But I had no idea how hard it would be to find a Bible study, a homeschool group. This town is just harsh. Like the people who live here they've all been friends forever. and that's great for them.
Right.
But it's hard walking into that, and it's hard being the new person. And so, we've had a hard time finding homeschool group where I felt like I fit with the moms and the kids enjoyed the kids. And we started with homeschool group, and then we looked at a Bible study, and finally we just started driving almost 40 minutes to a Bible study because the boys loved the teachers and the other kids. And it has turned out to be the most beautiful place of blessing for our family, for me, for the boys. But that took a while.
Oh yeah.
And really being left out pushed me to find the right one. and it wasn't easy. Like it wasn't easy to find the spot that God was carving out for me. Right. It took a lot of effort to hunt it down and seek it out and pursue it.
Yeah. Well, I think another part of being excluded is that we start to really search inside of us. Mm-hmm. And then that gives us some space to be able to take for healing and find some new rhythms. Because that's the big part of it is that it's going to sway back and forth of different situations, good and bad. That's going to happen. And how do I heal through that and find my rhythm? How do I check my heart? And how do I check my inner child? How do I learn how to take this situation and not feel that trauma that was from my past whenever I got excluded, and making that happen every single day? Mm-hmm. How do I heal that so then I know how to behave and react to these situations? It's huge.
And a lot of, what you were just saying, a lot of the feeling that we get that when your stomach drops and you're not invited, that's it. If you were to talk to your inner child, it's going to go back to an early abandonment issue. And almost for everyone, I would think. Like every time I have, or you have encountered that, it has been an early inner child abandonment thing. And so we have to recognize that, and we have to heal that. And then you get the opportunity to behave differently in the future. Right. So once you've experienced this kind of feeling where you're excluded, yes, there's a purpose, and yes, you're aware of that, and you can thank God for the blessing and the protection that comes from being in a protected space, but you're also going to treat people differently.
Yeah.
And you're not going to maybe be quite so harsh when it's time to end a friendship or to sever, a working relationship, or to move on to the next thing that God's calling you to. You're going to do that with more grace and more prayer and more dignity, because you know what it feels like when someone doesn't.
It's 8:28, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose, which includes different situations. Whenever we run into it, if God's calling us to these things, it's okay to have some different things take place and not be a big deal. Sometimes we send out text messages and don't return.
Yeah.
Of how we might hurt and feel from those canceled plans, friends group shifts, invitations that never come. Yeah. And you knew this event was happening and we didn't get invited. Mm-hmm. Circles close, and people who just walk away is going to happen. And we know that in all things, as long as we're there for God, it's going to turn out good.
Right. Yeah. And because he loves us.
Right.
Like that's the end of it. He loves us and we are his. And so he will work it. Mm-hmm. And we just have to remember that. Right. So here are a few things that we would challenge you to pray through, or journal through if you are walking through this in any capacity. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's your kid.
Right.
And these are things that you could point them to journal through, to pray through. We also have created a devotional guide that will be in the show notes that you can journal through and use that to kind of guide you, so that you can see that these seasons when you feel excluded are actually, you're being protected.
Right.
And so the first thing is, where did I feel left out this year?
Yeah. Second would be, what was God possibly protecting me from?
Third, what blessing came because I wasn't in that space?
Yeah. How can I trust God's redirection more deeply? And that's been a big one for us.
Yeah.
For this year.
So is there any one of those that you would like to, like maybe you could tell what you think God was protecting you from this year?
This year, not so much. I think God's been opening doors because last year, or it's 2026 now. So this year, I don't know. But 2025, I think it was more of a opening doors. 2024 was God closing doors for protection.
Yeah.
And needed that protection of the things that were taking place. But it was cool this past year to see God opening doors, and then me learning, especially how to trust deeper in this, because it's a new thing that we're doing. And it's not just a simple cookie cutter situation of how we're supposed to live and do things. It's just figuring out what door are you opening next, God, and just trust him deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this week, instead of asking, why wasn't I included? The thing that we would encourage you to ask is, what is God making room for?
Yeah.
Because, and you might not see that right away,
Right.
but just to be really thinking about what could God be doing here that's bigger than what I would have expected.
Right. So do you have something to add in those 4?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there have been big blessings because I wasn't in certain groups. Like, there's a particular homeschool group that I considered putting the boys in. And I mean, it seems like every time I hear about some sort of blow up, it's that group. And it's like, okay, I mean, and I hear about it like fairly consistently, probably every 2 or 3 weeks. And it's like, I'm so glad that those people felt unwelcoming to me and that I didn't pursue that any further, because my boys would be in the middle of that mess. Yeah. And I'm so thankful that we're not fighting that day in and day out. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think it's a blessing that we have found the Bible study group that we have found, because the boys do fit so well there. And the older women that are part of that love me well. And it's very comforting. Yeah. And so those 2 things, are definitely a blessing. And I do feel like God was protecting us. And it does help me to trust him more deeply when he shuts those doors and I feel excluded or not welcome.
Yeah. And that's not easy. And sometimes you have to wait for the next season and what happens, and just keep praying to God and see what doors he opens. So just like this podcast here, we hope that you're able to find some hope and healing with that. So like and subscribe, and then share this with somebody that needs to hear that when tough times, it's okay if doors are closed, and they're going to sometimes be messy, and there is hope at it. We've overcome a lot of different situations and we'll continue to overcome that, but there is hope.
Yeah. And I think that because we have overcome a lot of those situations, that's part of what we offer with our coaching at curatedcoalition.com. If you or someone you know is having trouble walking through a space or a time where they're feeling excluded, they're feeling rejected, send them our way, because we'd be more than happy to walk alongside them and encourage them and lift them up in that.
Yep. And on our website in the resource tab, we'll have a devotion for this, the same as all the other resources that we've put in there for our podcast episodes. And so go check that out. Also look in the comments and you can see a link to that.
Yeah. So God doesn't waste your exclusion. Nope. That's the bottom line. He removes you, and it's often because he is rescuing you from places that can't hold your calling, your healing, or your future. And so sometimes the door that closes is the very way that he opens the next chapter. Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. My hope is that you leave here reminded that whatever you're facing, you're not crushed, abandoned, or destroyed. That's the promise of 2 Corinthians 4:8 and 9 and the heartbeat of hope through the hard. Visit curatedcoalition.com for all of our coaching services or to book your free consultation. We'll see you next time.